Most people come here at night to watch 3 million bats pour out of a hillside like smoke into a Texas sunset. But I came during the day. There were no bats, there wasn't any crowds, and it was just me and a cool summer breeze I wasn't expecting. And then there's the tunnel resting in these hill country hills for over 100 years. And on another note, I'm still working my way back from a pretty serious injury that I had back in March. So this was exactly the kind of place that I needed to support my recovery. So let's explore Old Tunnel State Park, known for being the smallest state park in Texas, but also one of the most special ones. What's up, YouTube? It's Matt with the Matt Out Here YouTube channel, and today we're checking out a neat one, Old Tunnel State Park. Let's go explore this place. All right, y'all. Back in the 1880s, Fredericksburg had a problem. It was completely cut off from San Antonio, and without any railroads or fast trade routes, it made hauling goods extremely troublesome. And most folks relied on ox-drawn wagons for travel. For decades, local leaders tried everything to get a railroad built out here, but there was one thing standing in their way, a limestone ridge locals called the Big Hill, and trains just couldn't climb it. By 1913, the community had finally raised enough money to do something about it. About 100 workers, mostly local laborers, many of German descent, spent about 5 months boring 920 feet of tunnel straight through solid limestone. That's roughly 2.5 football fields, carved mostly by hand. And the tunnel added $134,000 to the project cost, which pushed the railroad into financial trouble almost immediately. The railroad line was called the San Antonio, Fredericksburg, and Northern Railway, and it only lasted about 29 years. And it was never really profitable. Between the rough terrain, competition from early automobiles, and the railroad constantly derailing, it was a tough run from day one. When World War II came along, the federal government declared the line non-essential to the war effort, and the steel rails were pulled up and sold for scrap. The tunnel was left behind, abandoned and slowly forgotten, but then nature had other plans. A nearby landowner noticed what looked like smoke rising from the hillside one evening. It turns out it wasn't smoke at all. It was Mexican free-tail bats, millions of them, and they've been calling this tunnel home ever since. Now, you can't go into the tunnel, not that you would want to, and the bat guano can be smelt from quite a distance, but you can enjoy it from many viewing points across the park. Today, Old Tunnel State Park sits on just 16 acres, making it the smallest state park in all of Texas. And there's a short half-mile trail, a few picnic tables, and the tunnel itself, but what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for in character. This little park carries over 100 years of Texas history, and the old tunnel itself sure makes you feel it. As I made my way down the hill toward the viewing area, I got my first real look at the tunnel, and I kind of just stopped for a second and took it in, because there's something about the tunnel, it's hard to explain, but it has this mysterious, almost eerie vibe to it, like some creepy monster could be living in there. And I'm not talking about the bats, but who knows what, right? If you look carefully, you can actually see the bats swirling around just inside the entrance. They're kind of moving around in the shadows, and they're waiting for nightfall. And I don't believe something's actually living in there outside of the bats, because the bat guano smells awful. You can smell it from the viewing area, and it's very distinct. But as cool as the tunnel is, it's really just one piece of this place. Look around and you start noticing the landscape, the berms, and the way the land is shaped in ways that feel almost too deliberate to be natural. And that's because it isn't natural. A lot of what you're walking on and around out here was once the actual railroad, the ground the tracks actually sat on, the infrastructure of a working railway, slowly being reclaimed by the hill country. There's remnants of the past out here, and they're just sitting around. They're left for us to explore and to ponder. After taking in the tunnel, it was time to hit the trail. The main trail here is only about half a mile long, with a loop option that brings you to right around 8/10 of a mile. There's some elevation, a few rocky sections, but nothing that's going to punish you. A lot of what you're walking on is the actual railroad grade, and the same path those trains ran on over 100 years ago. The berms and the cuts through the hillside are history under your feet. The railroad never had it easy. From the day it opened, cattle and goats had to be cleared off the tracks constantly. Flash floods would wash out the bridges, and the roadbed would settle and the train would derail. The schedule was pretty hard to maintain. Passengers leaving San Antonio at 2 in the afternoon weren't getting to Fredericksburg until 8 at night. For 29 years, this little railroad fought the hill country and mostly lost. And then one day it was gone. The rails were pulled up and sold for scrap, and all that was left were the berms, the cuts, the tunnel, and the land itself. And now it's a hiking trail. Alright YouTube, that's going to be a wrap on this video. I hope y'all enjoyed Old Tunnel State Park as much as I did, and definitely stay tuned because we got some awesome adventures ahead. Alright y'all, until next time, take care.